Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the PvP Live podcast, episode number 13. How is everyone doing tonight? Good? Yes? I guess I threw everyone off. This isn't a normal intro. I'm sorry. I'm going to be your host, Jason McCaw, accompanied by PvP Live staff members Aaron and Eldakar and Davis. Starting with Davis, like I always do, I know it's 2 a.m. where you are right now because we have this new start time on Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern, and I know you got to be tired, Davis. How you feeling over there, buddy?
It's an interesting time of night to be awake and talking, but
Yeah.
Here we are.
Right.
I'm good.
Well, it's good to know at 2 a.m. in Scotland, your webcam is still blurry as all get out. Going up to Aaron, how are you doing tonight?
Great, I'm doing well. Been a very busy week, but
Yeah.
we changed times, and I gotta say I love this new time. This is like after my second wind, I'm ready to go.
Right. Yeah,
It's gonna be a good show.
I gotta get used to it. I think starting so late in the day, and I'm such a warrior, and I gotta worry about stuff all day. But I'm super excited for this show. Going down to Eldakar, how are you?
I'm doing great. Like Danny, I'm pretty pumped up about this new time, although I feel kind of bad for the King of Scotland up there.
Yeah, it's a little bit late of a start. I hope you can muster through it. You're gonna have to chug some more coffee, I think, there, buddy.
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
So starting out, just real quick with a real quick news topic, the Feast of Winter Veil begins this Monday. Snowballs, sweaters, lumps of coal. Danny, do you participate in any of these World of Warcraft, seasonal activities?
I used to, but once all the achievements went account-wide, and I have them all, there's really no reason to. I do like to get the present under the tree, though. I've done that for quite a few years now, so
Of course.
we'll do that. But as far as all the quests and all that stuff goes, not since it all went account-wide, because been there, done that, right?
Been there, done that. Eldakar, how about yourself? Are you going to partake in the Feast of Winter Veil this month?
Yeah, I probably am. Like Danny, I don't think I've done the quest in years, but honestly, I think I get unusually excited about opening those presents in game. I don't understand why the stuff in there usually isn't that cool, but there's just something about opening presents. I think everybody loves it.
Yeah, you never know, because this could be the year where, Blizzard just throws in a random, legendary, right?
Yeah.
You never know.
And I also love the snowballs, especially in AV.
Oh, yeah.
So much fun.
Davis, going down to you. How about yourself? Are you going to partake next week in the Feast of Winter Veil?
I used to do it, but I haven't done it for a long time. Maybe I should get back to it. Back to my childish roots and
Yeah.
Maybe
enjoy.
this is the year.
This is the year I enjoy Christmas. We'll give it a good go.
What's the weather like over in Scotland right now, Davis?
It was raining all day.
Raining?
Yeah, all day.
I'll tell you, I live in Pennsylvania, and we actually got about 2 feet of snow. It's a snowstorm out there right now. I mean, I'm used to it.
I'll take rain over snow any day.
I'm a big fan of snow.
Yeah,
Really?
I prefer snow.
I'm a big fan of snow, but you know what I hate? I hate dirty snow. You don't like a
Yeah.
month after it stops snowing, and then all that dirt just combines with the snow, and I feel like I'm living in like a post-apocalyptic world.
I get that. Yeah.
Eldakar, what's the weather like where you're at right now? I know you travel constantly, right? You're a man of the world.
Yeah, I travel quite a bit. It's not too bad here right now. I'm actually kind of hoping for some snow because I love the snow right after it falls. But like you said, after it's been sticking around and it's like half melted and slushy ice and dirty, it's not too much fun at that point. But it's fun when it falls.
Oh yeah, it's got to get everyone in the holiday spirit. All right, enough of that PVE and holiday.
Hey, before we get on to the next topic,
Oh
though,
wow, okay.
I just want to say, somebody here had a birthday this week, huh?
Oh,
Jason?
yeah.
Yes,
Jason
I
had
did.
a birthday.
Yes,
yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah. Oh, cheers. Yes, thank you.
I would
Happy
sing you
birthday,
the
Jason.
song.
Appreciate it.
I would sing you the song, but it's copywritten and we'll get in trouble. So
I understand. I just turned 18, so I can go out and buy cigarettes now.
and porn and lotto tickets.
Porn and lotto tickets. Unfortunately, it's about double that. I'm in my late 40s. But anyways, moving on. Thank you, Danny, for pointing that out. Let's get into some PvP talk a little bit. Starting out with some blue posts. So there's been some 5.4.2 hot fixes coming out. There's a intervene nerf for warriors, which is a huge deal. A temporal shield nerf for mages, and something we'll get into about hunters with dismiss pet. Kind of going over, starting with Danny, starting with Aridin. Why don't you talk about some of the major changes in this last patch, because they're a pretty big deal for PvP.
Yeah, well, I think the two biggest changes, we'll get to the third in a minute, which I think is the biggest change, but the intervene nerf to warriors was kind of something that was needed a little bit, being able to intervene out of roots and have, a lot of warriors chose the mass spell reflect from that tier. It just made them insanely unpeelable and really tough to deal with, so now in order to break roots, they have to take safeguard, which means they get one less spell reflect, which means you can maybe poly them or something. Makes them a little more peelable. So
right.
It's a good change. They're still pretty strong damage and can stay on targets pretty well, but just a little less so.
What about the temporal shield nerf?
You know what? I don't know too much about that one. I know they nerfed the heal or something that it gives you. I haven't really had much time to play around this week because of everything we've been busy here with on PvP Live. But maybe JD knows a little bit more about that than I do.
Well, there we go. Going down to JD, what do you think about these 5.4.2 hot fixes or nerfs to warriors and mages?
I mean, I think all of them are like little tweaks that kind of needed to happen. I don't think anyone has too much to complain about. Am I wrong in that? Does anyone really want to complain?
Well, I know, JD, I know
warriors and mages.
Well, yeah, Davis, I mean, I know you hate warriors. I mean, what is this intervene nerf mean for them?
Well, I mean, it's no big deal to me. Maybe I'm not a very good warrior in that sense that I'm not angry about this. Okay, let me change my opinion. This is a horrible change because...
Well, I mean, you're not a good warrior, not a good rogue. What are you actually good at? Anything?
I don't know.
Being tired.
Being tired, having a wide selection of hats.
Ruling Scotland.
There you go, yeah.
Ruling Scotland, yeah.
Chasing haggis around.
Yeah. Anyway, so I don't think any of them are big enough changes for like anyone to be outraged.
Right.
And I think they're all changes that people think needed to come.
That's a reasonable response. Eldakar, going down to you. Oh, go ahead, Danny.
I was gonna say I would even argue that most people that play those classes that are reasonable people would agree. Even
See, I'm a reasonable person.
There you go.
JD's a reasonable warrior.
He's a reasonable warrior.
JD, the reasonable warrior.
I'm a reasonable warrior, yeah.
Eldakar, going down to you. What do you think about these 5.4.2 changes?
I think that they were completely necessary. Everybody knew that mages and warriors in particular were a little bit too powerful prior to the changes, and I think a lot of people are still arguing that warriors are still too powerful, but I'm glad that they nerfed some of the warriors' utility and a little bit of their mobility, because their ability to avoid things that would lock them down, because I feel like that's really where the issue is. You can't really peel a warrior. I mean, it's a little bit easier now, but nerfs to their mobility and their utility are the way to go, because I don't think their damage is the real problem. And I'm happy with their approach of making small changes and small nerfs at a time. I just wish they did them with a little bit more frequency and didn't wait so long in between the changes. I realize they have a lot of things to consider anytime they're looking at making a change, but I don't like huge imbalances lasting for large portions of a season, and I think a lot of people are on the same page.
Right. But I mean, it seems like Blizzard's taking an active approach to trying to address those issues. Even though they're smaller ones, but they're actively pursuing changing.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they're actively pursuing it, and I'm totally on board with the small changes, because I don't think anybody really wants to see their class or other classes have drastic changes in their viability and their skills especially in the middle of a major patch cycle, you don't want to have your class get nerfed into the ground in a hotfix.
Right.
Especially in one hotfix overnight, you log in, your class is totally different, and now you're garbage in arena. Nobody wants that. But small changes on a more frequent basis to get the classes where to a more balanced state, more balanced representation, and more balanced success, I think would be a good path to go down.
Something that was unannounced in the patch notes that people were kind of freaking out about when the patch was first released was the dismiss pet ability was heavily changed during this patch. It was basically being used as a cooldown to bypass Roar of Sacrifice mainly, or you could swap out a pet for one at full health. So this was kind of a big deal, and Lore actually kind of took care of that real quickly, announcing that it's functioning as intended now. Aridin, going to you, what do you think this means for hunters in PvP in general?
I think it's a good change, honestly, because the way they were kind of abusing the dismiss pet for new Roar of Sacrifice is kind of game breaking, really. A lot of hunters will argue that now they're really weak and can die easily, or their teammates can die easily, but I don't think that style of gameplay was really intended in the first place. The problem, though, that I can see and can agree with is that it wasn't included in the patch notes. So it kind of went in as a stealth nerf, if you will. So that's a problem, going live and not expecting that. But I think overall that what it's aiming to do is fixing that specific thing with Roar Sacrifice is a good change. Kind of being able to dismiss a dying pet. I don't know about how I feel about that. I play a Warlock, and one of the big things I saw when that change went in was, what about Warlock pets? Well, it works a little bit different mechanically. Warlocks have like a 1 minute cooldown to res them and things like that. But overall, I think they probably could have taken a different approach and maybe made Roar of Sacrifice kind of a global cooldown, or not global, but across the board with all pets instead of doing that. I don't know.
So, you said like a stealth nerf. Obviously, Blizzard had to know that people would immediately figure this out, though. Right, you think they purposely left it out of the patch notes, or you think they kind of forgot or didn't think it was that big of a deal?
Who am I to say?
No, I know. I'm just,
It could have been overlooked. We don't know really, but the community interprets it that way. The hunter community sees this wasn't in the patch notes.
It's a secret.
And, yeah, right.
It's a big conspiracy.
It just seemed like an oversight to me.
Right.
It clearly affects a lot of people. I don't know why they wouldn't put this in the patch notes if they knew that it was coming. I think it was just an honest mistake on their part.
Eldikar, do you have anything else to touch on that? Do you think this helps PvP in general, or is it going to affect your play style? Do you play with hunters?
I don't play a hunter, and I don't have any hunter teammates, but I do like the change because I think it fixes, like Danny said, something that was really unintended gameplay. And I feel like that's a good route to go. We don't want viability for certain classes in Arena to depend on gameplay that nobody's realistically going to figure out on their own and that you have to read about in some forum. Obviously we want people reading PvP forums, but everything in the game should feel intended and intuitive. And if you've got something that's clunky and weird like this that you're not normally going to figure out on your own, it should not be a critical aspect to the balance of your class. It should be removed. It should be fixed. And if your class is weak after that, it should be compensated in other areas.
Well, yeah, I don't think, kind of like Danny said too, I don't think Blizzard intended people to take advantage of, Roar of Sacrifice, for example. I don't think that was the intention, so that was kind of a needed fix. Davis, going down to you, I know you don't play a hunter, but do you play with any hunters? Has this affected you, or do you think it's going to affect Arena play overall with hunter teams?
Yeah, I think it will, kind of, but at the same time, hunters are just like shooting people in the face for like 120k, so it's not going to bother them that much, is it? They're just going to one-shot someone, right?
Well, I guess that's a good way to look at it.
Well, there seems to have been kind of it's like a reoccurring theme with hunter pets this expansion, has there not? First we had Stampede, which was absolutely ridiculous. That got changed, and then I don't know if you guys remember,
the big buff.
well, if this, I don't know if this was last season or the season before, but there was everybody was going out and getting shale spiders for the web wrap,
Yep.
and just abandoning their shale spider, summoning a new one, and getting a new web wrap. So like the sort of thing's been going on like all expansion, it seems.
It
Not
seems
just
like
all
there's
expansion. There's been issues with hunter pets. I mean, we were talking in an earlier podcast
Yep.
about hunters getting debuffs on their pets and then desummoning them and resummoning and stuff like that.
Wiping
Issues
out.
with hunter pets have been recurring throughout World of Warcraft. It's nothing new, and I don't think it's ever really going to go away completely.
Yeah, it's difficult. Actually, Josh Mall, our I guess editor in chief, right? Our EIC, if you will, is a big PVEer. And none of us really are at all. But he said it's kind of the revived pet buff. The cast time went down from 4 seconds to 2 seconds, I believe, Davis.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, this is actually kind of a bigger deal for hunters in the PVE community as well. Not that this is a PVE podcast by any means, but just thought I'd point that out. Actually, going around real quick, I don't think any of you guys raid regularly, at least.
No.
Not really,
Time to time.
Yeah.
Nothing
I
serious.
mean, I used to, like, really hardcore.
That
Yeah.
doesn't count.
Not so much anymore.
I poke around and looking for raid occasionally when a new instance comes out, but other than that, not really.
Yeah.
Well, there's no
like-
PVE gear. Let me say that again. There's no PVE gear to get to use an arena anymore. So
There's really no
Yeah,
reason
and,
for.
and also,
why raid?
like, I used to only raid so that I would kill the bad guy of World of Warcraft, if you know what I mean. But now I can do that in LFR.
Right.
I don't
Right.
need to. I don't need to raid really. I can just be like, oh, cool, I killed Garrosh. Wow.
Yeah, I'm actually. I'm in the process. Well, Danny knows I've been leveling a warlock here for about the past 7 months, and it's finally up. It's finally into. It's finally not that long. Exaggeration, but a couple weeks, a month or so. But anyways, he's finally like 86, and I actually kind of obviously I think I'll tell you what, guys. I am loving the warlock playstyle right now, and I've been leveling obviously demonology. And I know you can't really, that's not really a viable spec right now. But you know what? I'll tell you what. I think I might actually get into some flex rating. I kind of want to try it out. Danny, are you in this? You want to try this out with me? No.
Sure.
Oh,
Sure.
boy.
Why not?
Wow,
Why
that
not?
hesitation. Never mind. Sorry to
I've done
inconvenience you.
Flex is pretty good.
Is it? Yeah, I want to. I
It's
want to
just
get into it.
LFR, but with other people.
A little
Yeah.
more constructed, right?
Yeah.
I have such a
tried
short
Outflank.
attention span. Really, like my attention span when it comes to raiding, especially when there's no carrot at the end of the stick, so to speak. I don't know. It bores me, and I just lose attention really quickly. So
The first boss is really terrible too. I mean, sorry, Blizzard. It's really that's the most boring boss I've ever done in my life.
Not
Does
a big
anyone else
fan.
agree?
I've got to
Right.
agree with Danny about the carrot and the stick part. I mean, I got kind of into raiding in Wrath of the Lich King, but since then, especially since the Looking for Raid came in, you can see all the content, you can see all the bosses, and you can beat everything in Looking for Raid. And to me, the biggest motivator to raid was always just to see content, to see the story, to see what happens. And now that you can do all of that in a night and Looking for Raid, there's really no motivation for me. I don't need to jump on the gear treadmill and get gear that's really not useful for anything other than doing that raid. So unless you just enjoy raiding for the challenge of it, I don't really see the attraction.
Right.
yeah.
Moving on to another kind of a hot fix is dampening. When 5.4.2 first came out, there was kind of a bug actually because at BlizzCon there was changes made to dampening at BlizzCon and they somehow made it into the 5.4.2 patch. But it's actually hotfixed now. Dampening is back to a 10-minute start time with arena matches ending at 20 minutes. But this was, and I don't want to touch a long time on this because it was already fixed, but how long did that last? Like a couple days, Danny?
Yeah,
3
like
days?
2 days.
2 or
I
3
think,
days?
maybe.
Yeah, I
3
mean,
days,
that was
4 days.
I just saw all the tweets going at Holinka and Lore, asking what the heck's going on, but it's kind of already been fixed. Eldakar, actually, do you want to kind of go into a little bit about what happened with that?
Essentially, they had a dampening time period that they had in place for the tournaments that took place at BlizzCon, and for whatever reason, it just kind of snuck into live with the most recent patch, and it wasn't intended. I don't think it was really the end of the world, but
Well, what the
They
bug
managed
was,
to
to
get
be
it fixed pretty quick.
specific, to be more specific, the change was that dampening started stacking up at 5 minutes instead of the current 10 minutes. So, um, obviously, you can imagine, pretty quickly you're taking much less healing. So,
Right.
Honestly, I like it.
yeah,
I
I do
wish they
too.
would make the change permanent. Well,
Really?
bring
I
it
mean,
back anyways. Yeah.
go into a little explanation. What? How come?
I just I don't like really long arena matches, and I think given how gradually dampening stacks up, it's totally fine 5 minutes into a match to have it slowly start to stack up. That seems completely reasonable to me. If you haven't gotten even close to a resolution of an arena match after 5 minutes, you should at least start moving towards seeing some kind of resolution. I am just not a fan of matches where everybody is, dancing around pillars and hiding from each other and playing should we disengage and then re-engage, heal back up, all that stuff for 15, 20 minutes. I think 5 minutes is totally reasonable.
Well, and plus after 5 minutes, for every class that comes to my mind, you've been able to use your cooldowns twice, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and it stacks up so slowly, but I think this is kind of getting into a little bit of another topic that we have planned to talk about. But one of the reasons why it was hot fixed back to the way it currently is and the way it has been is because Holinka had said that he doesn't want to make this change in this current season. Not till his words were not until next season. So, what does that mean, right?
Right. Davis, going down to you. What do you think about the? Obviously it's already changed, but what do you think about dampening in general?
I mean, I think it's pretty cool because I don't really like super long games either. On the one hand, I kind of prefer, because I think in a long game, to some extent, it ultimately comes down to the better team. But on the other hand, there's so much like, I mean, if you're just playing a comp that's not very good long game or whatever, then you, you're not very, you're not in good grounds. But I mean, I'm happy about it. It makes games faster. I can either win quicker or lose quicker.
So it's all about. It's pretty much the consensus is we want quick arena matches, right? I mean, that's kind of
like,
the
I don't
general
want it-
consensus.
I don't want it to be super, super fast paced though, because I feel like that's just a bit button mashy. I don't know.
I mean, let's be honest. Arena matches in general, compared to other games, and I know that's hard to compare, are extremely fast-paced games. And I know we've talked about this before, but I mean, it's really like commentators, for instance, trying to keep track of a arena match in a tournament. It's really fast-paced. It's almost to a fault too fast. But I mean, that's
Yeah,
a
and
whole
I
other
believe
issue.
I believe we have VL in chat here. I saw him at least earlier. I'm sure he can.
Yeah.
I'm sure he can attest to that a little bit. How hard it is to commentate the current game with how fast it is. And I'm kind of on board with that to an extent. I do like, obviously the better team to win, and but I do think starting at 5 minutes dampening is a good way to go. Like I said, it gives almost every class. Somebody mentioned shamans with ascendants being 3 minutes, but almost every class has the opportunity to use their cooldowns twice. And it's just, and it does stack up so slow. 1% at a time. It's a good change, but not the change they want to make during this season. So.
Right. Well, I think we kind of covered dampening to the end because it's already been hot fixed, and kind of moving
Yeah.
on now to our bigger topic of the night, and something that we've never really talked about since BlizzCon is Ashran, the new battleground. It's going to be a staging
World PvP zone.
world. I'm sorry, I've said that before and I've messed that up. The new world PvP zone. I'm sorry. It's it's going to be a staging area near the Dark Portal that Alliance and Horde are basically fighting to gain control of, and it's going to be a little bit different though than Wintergrasp and Tol Barad. Since it's going to be a constant battle, not every couple hours like those the other world PvP zones are. So Danny, actually, just going over to you. I know we have a lot to talk about right now with predictions, and we don't know that much so far. But what do you think about this new zone?
I think it would be cool. I think it's going to be cool in general. It's going to be a lot of fun, something to do extra. The only thing that concerns me and is what would sell me on it is if there's some type of reward from it. With Tolbarad and Wintergrasp in the past, you got honor from it, which once you start getting your conquest gear or your arena point gear back then, it's kind of becomes pointless. Especially now that there's not so much server conflict as there was back in the day. But if there's some kind of incentive to do it, I think it could be a lot of fun. Whether it's boosted experience or things you could buy or something like the old what were they called in Windgrasp? The stones you got. Remember?
Commendations? No.
No, they were like there's some kind of currency you got and you could buy things for like
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
yeah.
I think they were called commendations.
Yeah, maybe they were. They were called like stones, some kind of stone, something. But something like that. Like, can I buy? Maybe I could buy BOA gear for alts, or one thing that I've missed since then is being able to send honor to alts, buying those things. So there has to be something I think for it to be fun for me, anyways.
Or maybe even like purchase. What do you think about enchants?
Yeah, anything that could help out somebody that spends most of their time in game PvPing, because it's been a complaint for a long time that there's no way to make gold, enchants, gems, all this stuff. So I think there has to be something going on there.
Eldakar, going down to you. What kind of overall? What do you think about the new PvP zone, Ashran?
I'm really excited to see it. I've been a big fan of World PvP since I started Warcraft. I mean, World PvP is what got me into PvP, and I think that's the case for a lot of vanilla players. If it is really a constant tug of war and they do it right and they keep it engaging, I think it could be amazing and more fun than any other PvP in the game. But it all comes down to the details.
Right.
And as for the incentives and the rewards, I'm completely on board with what Danny was saying. It needs to have unique rewards. It needs to have engaging rewards. It needs to have a reason beyond just fun. I mean, obviously, I want it to be enjoyable in its own right, but it needs to have unique draws in terms of rewards. And I think having cool PvP items that you can only get from Ashran are really the way to go. I honestly miss the old days where you could get certain PvP items for certain slots from different battleground reputations, and it encouraged you to farm specific battlegrounds and try to get certain pieces of gear. I think, just having flat honor and having an honor vendor and everything coming from honor has made things really stale and really boring. And I want to see them move back to a system where you've got unique pieces of gear coming from unique locations, and you've got to engage in all these different types of PvP to finish your full PvP gear set. I think that's infinitely more interesting and infinitely more fun.
So let me ask you a question, Eldakar. What do you think would be a good reward item from Ashran, for example?
I think you could have cool, interesting PvP trinkets that are not just, here's a bunch of a huge primary stat.
And more powerful than the current season gear? Like, more powerful than a Grievous trinket, for example?
Not necessarily more powerful. Probably the same item level, but with more interesting effects.
Okay.
I mean, they've had really cool, interesting trinkets in PvP for years. And the PvP trinkets have always been pretty bland and pretty boring. And I realize that a big factor in that is balance reasons. It's much easier to balance, here's just a bunch of a primary stat, than it is all of the crazy unique effects on PvE trinkets. And PvE trinkets have been an issue in PvP in the past. But I think if they do it right, they could make some interesting stuff that's a lot of fun. And quite frankly, with the upper echelon, top-end rated PvP moving to Trial the Gladiator, which has its own separate gearing system and you can't bring outside gear into it, I think that really opens the door for the developers to introduce crazy, more interesting PvP gear, and for it to be okay. It's not going to break the rated ladders. It's not going to get somebody Gladiator that shouldn't have gotten it. It's not going to be required for top-end PvP. It's just going to be fun. And that's what I really want to see.
And you know what? Spinning off of that, actually, before we before we let JD talk, we're gonna keep his opinion silent for a second.
Let him take a nap real quick.
Yeah, you're looking a little
All right,
sleepy over there, but going off of this idea of Trial of the Gladiator, so we don't know exact details on it, but it sounds like from what we know, it's only going to be a couple days a week, right? So that means that if you want your arena players to have something to do outside of Trial of the Gladiator queue times, we got to make this fun, right? We got to make Ashran something that everybody can do and have a good time doing. So that's what it is for me. I've seen these World PvP zones a few times now with everything previous expansions, and it just has to maintain that fun aspect. It has to be updated as the expansion goes on. If they come out with cool stuff, at launch, when the next patch comes out, the next content patch, they have to update the gear. It can't stay the first season of Draenor gear.
Yeah, and that's critical. That's something they didn't do with Tol Barad. They never, as far as I remember, they never updated that gear after the expansion came out. So after the first patch cycle, it was pretty much useless, and there was really no motivation to go do Tol Barad other than get some easy honor. Yeah. And I completely agree with you, Danny, that they need to give PvPers something cool and fun to do beyond just the normal battlegrounds and arenas. And I think that Ashran has the potential to be really engaging. And what I'm most excited about, probably most excited about for Ashran, is that it has the potential to rebuild a sense of community on PvP realms, because they said that you're pretty much always going to be going into the same instance with people from your realm. So you're actually going to get to know people again on your realm. You're going to run into the same people again and again. You're going to form rivalries with people on the other faction. You're going to develop allies that maybe you didn't know before, make new friends. The social aspect of Ashran, I think, is going to be huge if they can make it popular.
Now, do you guys think that you're going to be able to instantly be ported there through the random battleground finder? I mean, or how do you guys think this is going to work? Or do you actually have to travel to that zone to enter it? I mean, I guess it's not that important. I'm just kind of curious. I wonder how you're actually going to enter it.
Well, there would have to be some kind of loading screen, I would imagine, because I'd imagine it would be on its own instance,
right?
Yeah, in order to control the server traffic or whatever. So
you're not just going to fly to the dark portal and be there, basically.
Right.
If we look at how they did Tol Barad, that was completely separate. You couldn't fly to it. If you flew to its location on the map, there was nothing there. Just fatigue that would kill you.
Right.
And I really suspect, for the reasons that Danny mentioned, server load balancing and stuff like that, it's got to be in its own separate instance. So whether or not you queue for it, or
probably just
you
take a portal,
go through a portal or something like that, there's got to be some way to get there that doesn't involve just players traveling to it manually.
Poor Davis down there has not gotten to speak 1 second during this whole time. Davis, going down to you. I mean, what do you, overall, we'll get into some more stuff after you talk a little bit, but, what do you think about Ashran?
I mean, I think it sounds really cool, and my guild are doing a kind of guild versus guild battleground in the middle of nowhere event sort of thing for fun. So we're kind of looking forward to the opportunity to do that within World of Warcraft and benefit through the World of Warcraft system, if you know what I mean. But I have a lot of the same concerns that everyone else has, and I particularly had the one regarding the gear. It needs to update with every season, because otherwise it just becomes a place that people don't really go unless they're gearing an alt, if you know what I mean, and that really kills activity there, I think.
Well, everything we have in the game right now has something to do with building your character, right? Whether it be arena, BGs, even heroic dungeons. If you don't have any gear, kind of not worth it now with the Timeless Isle and everything. But everything you do in end game contributes to the strength of your character, to building your character. So if this is supposed to be an end game option for PvP, why should that not also lend to the strength of your character?
I would like a cool transmog set if you're super good in Ashran and you win loads of times or something like that.
Kind of like the challenge modes, but for PvP. I like that.
And then maybe 1 or 2 tabards or like
Some
a faction.
mounts.
Yeah, some mounts wouldn't go
I feel like
amiss.
JD's talking to Santa here.
Yeah, it's literally on Santa's
I
lap.
mean, pretty
Spirit.
much. But I mean, like we don't get like okay, PvPers don't get like legendaries. We don't get like we don't get anything that's like wow, my character is like epic unless you're like super good and you're a gladiator or whatever. So I think it'd be cool if we just got a little bit more stuff that's like on the way to becoming a gladiator and celebrates different aspects of the PvP and stuff like that.
Another
But
option for rewards,
it
basically.
it shouldn't all be like easy to get if you just farm it, if you know what I mean. I think there should be like interesting options about like if you get it done super quickly because you win a lot or you generate a lot of points or whatever, then you should unlock access to things or something.
Danny,
Yeah,
you brought up possible BOA rewards in
just
Ashran.
so,
Why don't you elaborate a little bit? What would you like to see?
I mean, I was personally trying to stay away from like current gear or like another kind of way to gear your character. But since it's on the table, I do like that idea. But I was thinking more outside of the box, kind of like different ways to obtain things to help your account out or something like that. Um, but even you could maybe they just drop you could get tokens somehow, some kind of currency that you can use on multiple different things. So, say you have all the gear from Ashran and you want to start, and you don't do heroic dungeons, but you want to get heirlooms. Well, now you can spend the points on that, or whatever you have. But one thing I want to talk about is, as far as the gameplay of the zone goes,
Yep.
I really like zones that are not so much big raid versus big raid. What I really liked about Wintergrass was the ability to get with a small group of friends and go, to one area and change the tide of the game just by what you do there with 5 people. So I'd really like to see kind of like smaller objectives that like a small group of good people can go and do instead of everybody running in circles,
Yeah,
basically.
Danny. Actually glad you brought this up because this is going to be the next thing I wanted to talk about. Is kind of the different aspects that we've heard about that's going to be implemented into Ashran, and one of those is siege vehicles basically destroying enemy bases. And of course, we've already seen this in IOC and Strand of the Ancients, and before we went live, we were talking about this again, and we've talked about this a million times about how much I hate vehicles in any kind of random battleground. It's just to me, it's just kind of like a gimmicky idea thrown in there because it's not really for the people that like to PvP. There's no skill involved really, other than organizing a group to take out a base, a door's base. So Eldikar, actually going down to you, what do you think about siege vehicle type battlegrounds or PvP zones?
I've got a lot of the same concerns that everybody else has. I think siege vehicles, for the most part, have been wildly unpopular in Strand of the Ancients and in Isle of Conquest.
Yep.
They seemed a little bit more popular in Wintergrass, but for the most part, I don't like the idea of players controlling siege vehicles in PvP combat. I think that damages PvP combat in a lot of intangible ways. Just not controlling your character just doesn't feel right. You're controlling some vehicle with a few abilities, and it doesn't feel like real PvP.
Yeah.
However, with that said, I did really enjoy in old AV when you could summon things like Ivus the Forest Lord or reinforcements that would just be NPCs that were not player controlled that would just run towards the enemy base fighting any enemies that they encountered on the way there. That doesn't detract from your PvP combat. It just adds some interesting elements to it. And I think if they had siege vehicles like tanks that would spawn and just go on an automated path to the enemy base and you had to defend them as the players, I feel like that would be more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, personally, and I'll go to Danny and Davis after this, but personally, any kind of loss of control of character where you're manning some kind of vehicle, especially, like I said, I've been leveling a warlock here for the past month, and there's so many quests where you're entering some kind of vehicle and you have to perform these tasks, and I'll tell you what, those are my least favorite quests. I'm obviously not PvP related, but just personally, like, I'm playing this game to... For me, just the way that I have fun in World of Warcraft is I like to play my character. I don't want to, add some kind of outside element to my play. But I understand why people do it and why Blizzard does it. But Danny, going over to you, as far as siege vehicles go in PvP, what do you think?
In PvP, I don't like them. Like you mentioned questing and stuff, I think it's okay to mix it up from time to time and do some different things, but all the battlegrounds or world zones that have involved siege vehicles, I don't ever use them. I avoid them. It's not my thing, I want to hit people with my spells and swords, I don't want to shoot cannonballs at them. So, but what's interesting is Tol Barad. They had siege vehicles in that, but they were like unmanned. You drove them, you parked them, and then let them do their thing. It never kind of went the route I think Blizzard intended, where they became an objective to kill the siege vehicles to make your time less. But what do you guys think about something like that, where you an unmanned vehicle, basically, kind of going along with what you said, Jeff, like summoning the Frost Lord or whatever in AV,
like a predator drone.
Yeah, I think that's the only way to go. They should be completely unmanned, completely automated, more automated than they were in Tol Barad. You shouldn't have to drive them somewhere to position them. They should just spawn, and maybe they don't take the same route every time. Maybe they don't do exactly the same thing. There might be some randomness to it, but what they do should be totally out of player hands.
Yeah, it adds a whole nother level of complexity to random battlegrounds, which, we've talked about before, is a lot of general players, not hardcore players, have a hard time even understanding the logistics of Arathi Basin, for example. And then you throw in a siege vehicle in there, and then they have no idea what the heck's going on. So it complicates things a little bit.
Yeah, it does. But if they're unmanned, I think that's an acceptable level of complexity. And one of the things that I really liked in the old AV is that it didn't take the entire team working together to summon some of those NPC reinforcements. A few dedicated people could make it happen on their own. So especially with the scale and like the lack of player limits, or what I'm hoping is going to be a lack of player limits in Ashran, you could go into Ashran hopefully with like a group of 4 friends and just focus on summoning some huge super tank that's going to roll towards the enemy base and do a lot of damage. Maybe you're not super geared. Maybe you're pretty new to PvP. That's still a viable option for you. You can go do that, and that can be your way of contributing to the battle, because maybe you're not that useful on the actual front lines. But it gives you another option. Or maybe your team is falling behind and you want to summon something that's going to really help everybody out. It just keeps things interesting.
Right. Davis, going down to you, you haven't really spoken about, siege vehicles, or do you like them in, PvP zones or battlegrounds? How do you feel about them?
I like the idea of them being completely unmanned. I vaguely remember I was a very young child when I was doing AV in vanilla and seeing the giant mobs that it spawned, but I don't like the driving a tank thing. I don't think anyone feels. No. I don't think anyone gets the kick that you should when you're like, I'm in a tank. Like, I'm in a tank in a battleground. Look at all these tiny people around me. Ha ha ha. So I think there either needs to be a kick to it, or it should just happen, and it can be an interesting mechanic that you can try and work towards, and it can really change the pace of the battle, I guess. It'd be cool if it mattered, if you could spawn some tank, if you know what I mean, and it could really turn it around, even if they're stomping all your bases or whatever. You can.
Yeah, what if it felt like a true reward? You're on one side, whatever it is, Horde, Alliance, whatever you play, and the other team, you're like, oh shit, these guys are about to summon a tank. You know what I mean? And if you're the side that's summoning a tank, it should feel cool. Like, this is it. Like, we're really pulling ahead here. It's got to be rewarding. So I think overall, just to summarize this new zone, Ashran, it's got to be rewarding. It's got to be engaging. It's got to be fun. That's the bottom line. I mean,
I think maybe even if they I think we kind of touched on this, but if they lowered the number of siege vehicles, like it was actually a privilege to get in one. You were actually you could possibly change the tide of battle. I think that'd make a huge difference on that implementation.
I think it could, but I still don't really like it. And I think, if anything, it would just cause drama. Somebody would jump in one of those
Yeah.
things,
And they would drive into the
people would
ocean.
People would not like what they're doing with
Right.
it.
Yep.
No matter who's doing anything with it, even if they're doing
Trolling.
exactly what they should,
That's
somebody
true.
would be unhappy about it
Yep.
because they wanted to be in it. I think it would cause nothing but problems.
Yeah.
It almost inherently encourages trolling to do it that way. Like,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And Danny, going back to what you were saying about it being really impactful and really rewarding when something like that is summoned, that's exactly how it was in old AV. People would get in tug-of-war battles in the field of strife that didn't really seem to be moving either direction. Ibis, the Forest Lord, would get summoned, and everybody on their team would just rally around him and push with him. Or the rock guy from the Horde, I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
But when that happened, it would totally shift the tides of the battle because everybody would be pushing with their superhero, essentially, and it would start moving the line of combat towards the enemy base. And it really made a difference.
Although I will say it would have to be balanced a little bit better than that, because if I can remember so long ago, like people would almost purposely stalemate until these events happened, right? So,
Well, I think that says something about how fun they were.
well,
Yeah.
That's true.
but I think
I don't
there
think
has
I
to
don't
be.
think anyone went into AV back then to like win. It was like you went into AV to like farm all your kills
Right.
and have the most
Sure,
amazing battle experience ever.
That's
I
true.
think.
People
Yeah,
went in for the fun of the battle, not to get a
Like-
quick win, because some of those games lasted like 2-3 days.
well,
Yeah.
what I'm saying with that is there has to be a reason to try to complete other objectives instead of just the one objective to get your tank or whatever. You know what I mean? So
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it has to balance it out. It has to encourage groups to tackle these different things instead of everybody just contributing to building a tank.
Yeah, I totally agree. There needs to be options. There needs to be other things to contribute towards.
Yeah.
Like in AV, you could summon cavalry, like wolf riders and stuff like that, in addition to those super guys. I think there were other things that you could summon too. There were a lot of different options. And I think in Ashran, they should have even more. There should be tons of different things that you can do to contribute to the war effort or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I think we're just gonna have to wait and see, until more news on Ashran's release. I think we're all gonna be super excited, just like we're still waiting for Trial of the Gladiator news. But it'll all come in good time, I'm sure. Before we actually move on to the next subject, I just want to remind everyone to go to pvp-live.com, bookmark that website, follow us here on Twitch, follow us on Twitter, follow us everywhere that we do something. But on a side note too, is we've hired a bunch of new bloggers, and we're still actually looking for more bloggers. So we're having daily content updated on the website. So make sure to go to PvP Live. And one other thing is too, we have a bunch of tournaments lined up for next year, and there's going to be some exciting news announced, but not yet. But there'll be a ton of tournaments that we're going to be sponsoring in 2014. So
Hosting.
I'm sorry, not sponsoring. Hosting tournaments in 2014. So make sure to keep tuned for that news. Moving on, and I think kind of our last subject that we want to talk about. Lore on Friday. Well, actually, I should preface this, actually. Blizzard had their holiday party on Friday. Big holiday party, and I'm guessing they maybe took off half the day or something. And Lore tweeted out yesterday, actually, if anyone has questions, now's the time to ask me. Well, Eldakar, as our diligent PvP Live staff member, tweeted at Lore, and himself, Lore, and Eldakar got in a big... and Holinka, I'm sorry, got into a discussion about the health damage revamp, and basically a possibility of reducing all crits to 150% baseline instead of a 200% they're at right now. And there's another subcategory to this. But starting out with Eldakar, do you kind of want to go into a little explanation about what you guys were talking about?
Okay, well, this all started with me tweeting Lore asking about what was going to happen with resilience and if it was going to stay baseline like it is now, if it was going to go back to gear. That was the kind of stuff I was curious about.
Right.
And Lore Lore said he wasn't really sure exactly what was going to happen with the health damage revamp. And Halinka jumped in at that point and started adding more things to the conversation. And the impression that I was getting is that they're essentially going to completely revamp health and damage so that people's health pools are much larger relative to the amount of damage that they're doing. But baseline resilience is going to be much lower than it is now. So the amount of damage that players deal in PvE and PvP will be much closer together. And another aspect of it that they're looking at possibly doing is reducing the amount of damage or healing that crits do from 200% of the base value to 150% of the base value. And people came back tweeting Halinka saying this is going to impact some specs more than others. Some people are more crit dependent. And he came back saying that every change impacts certain classes more than others, but given the amount of stuff that they're changing, they'll have the opportunity to compensate the classes that are more crit dependent to keep things on an even playing field. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what's going to happen here. I think battle fatigue is also going to end up seeing some changes in order to compensate for the loss of resilience and trying to keep healers roughly where they're at right now in terms of efficiency. But I think overall the game is going to feel much better, and not having your damage cut down to a quarter when you go into PvP is going to make a lot more sense to most players, I think, and it'll make it easier to get into PvP and easier to understand what's going on.
Danny, going to you. I mean, what do you think about them moving down to 150% baseline crit instead of the 200% it's at right now?
I think it's all part of a much bigger picture here. Is that they're really taking a look at the damage and the health pool of players, and they're really trying to scale everything back and get it back to a nicer spot, more easy to deal with. It almost seems like, and I hate when people use this term "dumb down" because it's not what they're doing at all. Like they're trying to make it easier to understand, right? So new players could get into it. The people that are at the top of the game are still going to be at the top of the game because that's what they do. But like, so from our perspective, we're PvPers. The show's called PvP Live, and we like seeing tournaments and things like that. But one of the biggest things that has affected WoW in this tournament community is how hard it is to understand. So if they're going back and they're scaling things down, making things health spike a lot less, it's going to be easier to understand. And this comes with the CC and everything. They're taking a look at almost all of their systems and figuring out how they can change it to better balance the game. And I think it's great. It needs to be done.
So I mean, go ahead, Jeff.
Touching on that, Danny, one of Blizzard's core mottos in pretty much every game franchise I have is things should be easy to learn and difficult to master. And I think you're totally dead on. They can make things much easier to understand without removing the opportunity for skill to play its part in the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Davis, going down to you. What do you think about 150% baseline crit instead of the 200% right now? Is that going to make a big difference?
As a rogue and a warrior.
Yeah, there you go.
As a rogue and a warrior, I'm going to miss the big numbers just because they're so big.
Right.
On the other hand, for, like actual gameplay, I guess it does make the game a bit better. Because crits were getting ridiculous, and especially with things like Skull Banner and, I don't know, all the different multipliers that you can have in the game. Like, there are numbers that people are getting at the moment that just, like, it shouldn't even be possible. Even if the stars align, you should not be able to delete someone in one global. I do not think so.
Davis, let me ask you this: what do you think about them lowering the base resilience?
I mean, so this I'm not really convinced about, and I'm kind of confused about. But I'm sure Jeff will give us all some numbers one day, and then.
I think resilience is just a confusing stat in general. It's hard for everybody to understand.
Yeah,
but I like the idea of there not being a super huge gap, but a noticeable gap between the damage you do to someone with resilience is the damage you do to someone without resilience. But Um, I don't know. I just kind of, it's just kind of worrying.
Well, Jeff, let me ask you this. Something else that they mentioned was they don't want to have resilience-based gems anymore. What do you think about that?
My interpretation is that they don't want people customizing their characters for more survivability through resilience. They want resilience to pretty much be the same for everybody, which is clearly the direction that they've been moving. But they did say that they liked having resilience on like the two-piece set bonus for trinkets. So it seems like they just want to use resilience as a mechanism to encourage people to use PvP gear in PvP, but not as a means to make yourself invulnerable in PvP through stacking massive amounts of it. So, I mean, I would really like to see it removed as a stat completely and just made a background effect like battle fatigue is right now, and see them use other ways to encourage gear. But
See, I kind
we'll have
of
to wait
think
and see what they
oppositely.
do.
I think that it seems to me like they're trying to make it to where it's more competitive in any gear you're wearing. If that makes sense. Like
Could you
so
elaborate on that?
right now there's a big gap between PvP gear and PvE and like world PvP, right? And if you're going into arena or even BGs in your raid gear, you're not as effective because of the item levels reduction and all that. So what it sounds like to me is they're trying to make whatever kind of thing you do that involves PvP that you can do it in any gear you're wearing and it's not going to be as much of a difference. So like you're not going to have PvEers in full heroic gear one-shotting PvPers in full PvP gear.
Yeah, I mean, I got that impression as well. What I meant with them wanting to use wanting you to use PvP gear in PvP is they want PvP gear to be ideal for PvP, not necessarily to just totally crush all PvE gear and make PvE gear totally worthless in PvP. They definitely seem to want some kind of crossover. They want somebody that's in full rating gear to be able to step into PvP and give it a shot without getting totally destroyed.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this based on their previous statements.
It's gonna something that's gonna take a lot of tooling and
Yeah.
messing around with balancing
Yeah,
to get right.
it's going to be
but-
very difficult for them to achieve it and get it to a place where they can consistently scale it up throughout the patch cycles without losing the balance that they're trying to strike.
Why not just make conquest gear the best gear in the game that you could possibly get, and then scale that down in PvE?
Yeah, you know,
Problem solved.
I would like that. I think the PvE
Problem
would-
solved. Well, whatever. It doesn't affect them because it's
Right.
significantly less item level in PvE. But you know, everybody has they like to see those big item levels and show them off, flex.
Well,
Flex.
it's going to be exciting to see how they actually implement this in 6.0. I think we're still a little ways off from them completely rebalancing resilience and crit.
You know, going along. Actually, I wanted to mention something with kind of what people are saying in chat, and it reminded me that there's also been a little bit of talk about possibly not allowing cooldown stacking anymore. I don't know if any of you guys caught that, but there's a little bit of that going on Twitter, saying like, for example, warriors not being able to stack, Avatar, Recklessness, Skull Banner, all at once. I think that's a big change, but definitely something that needs to come. It's too much. There's too much cooldown stacking.
But
I think that kind of ties in with their goal to reduce the number of active abilities for people to click and have on their bars, and the justification that they've given for possibly reducing cooldown stacking is that if you're using all of these abilities together every time you use them, they're just all tied together in a macro and you never use them separately. What's
Right.
the point of them being separate abilities? Why not just tie them all together in one ability and make it easier to understand?
Well,
I'm sorry, I interrupted you, JD. What were you saying?
it's okay. Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I mean, okay, so if you think about it, Avatar lasts quite a long time. It's like 20 seconds, isn't it?
Yeah, right around there, yeah.
And then Recklessness lasts quite a long time too. I think it's about 15 seconds. Or maybe
15
longer,
or
I'm sure.
20, something like that.
and then Skull Banner lasts about 10 seconds. So, like, in theory, a warrior has, like, 50 seconds worth of offensive cooldowns. Do you really want them being forced to use those spread out? Like, does that really sound like a better idea, or would it be better to just put them all into one ability?
I think they
right.
would consolidate some of them and remove some of them.
Yeah, because I think it would be too long. They would just have
constant powerful damage.
I think
Yeah.
Skull Banner is a good it's a good ability to have as a raid cooldown, not as an arena cooldown.
It's kind of like heroism, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
a bit-
it kind of is.
It's a bit like taking the mick. It's a bit,
Taking the mick?
yeah, like it.
What?
I'm not familiar with
Yeah,
that
can you
expression either.
explain that Scottish term there, JD?
Well, like if you're taking the mickey, then you're like being a bit cheeky. So
Being a bit cheeky.
So it's like a bit cheeky, like
Now it's
being able
totally
to.
clear.
Oh
now I
boy.
get it.
It's a bit cheeky being able to just pull out. By the way, my crits do a bit more damage than yours do. So.
Yeah.
You're talking like a foreign comedy right now.
But yeah, and like Stormlash too. Like, I mean, there's been a lot of problems with scaling that properly. I would say just make that a raid cooldown too. But why do they keep giving so many raid cooldowns to shamans? That is one thing. Why do shamans always a lot of their cooldowns are like buffs someone else as well as you, if you know what I mean?
Their supports.
It's a 2-for-1.
But like other classes don't really have that. Like druids just have you become really super awesome because you have Heart of the Wild, so now you can kill someone and heal yourself. Do whatever you want. You're a druid. You're a god
be a total
of nature.
female Furion for 20 seconds.
Isn't it like 40 seconds?
Yeah,
Lasts
it's
forever.
really long. I don't know. It lasts a really long time. But yeah, I think it's a good idea, and it's all stuff that they're supposedly looking at for the next expansion.
Yeah, I mean, like it's just with everything else, it's obviously I think it was a consensus last podcast that we kind of think that it's probably going to be coming out in August. Warlords of Draenor is coming out probably around August this summer sometime, but still everything's obviously up in the air. And yeah, I think. Did anyone else have anything else to say about resilience and the crit?
I think we said all that has to be said. I mean,
excellent.
We got to see.
Yeah, we covered it.
Yeah, I think we covered everything perfectly. Well,
Here's a question for you guys.
Go ahead.
When do you think we'll see beta?
Oof! Wow, that's a tough one.
3 to 4 months before release.
Yeah, because that's what it was
if the
with
past
Mist,
development
right?
cycles have
Right.
been any indication. So if we're looking at a release sometime in like June, we'll probably see an early closed beta start sometime in like late February, March, maybe early August.
Which isn't that far away, really. I mean, that's a couple months away.
I would bet on March,
Yeah.
February or March.
And obviously, that's when we're going to have so much more information once that closed beta start. Well, hopefully, at least. Hopefully, we'll have a ton more information to talk about after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully, we get some more news coming our way soon by way of blue posts or anything.
Yeah, tweets for that
Yeah,
matter.
That reminds me, Halinka mentioned on Twitter that he's looking for more feedback on a lot of these topics before they make more design decisions
Yep.
and release more information. So if you have feedback about some of the stuff that's currently been announced, about the stuff that Halinka posts about or Lore posts about, please give them that feedback on the official forums or through Twitter, through whatever official medium. Just give them your feedback so that they have that going forward in the design process.
Constructive feedback, though. Just don't say that
Constructive
I don't like A, B, and C. I don't like Trial of the Gladiator. It sucks. Constructive feedback.
Keep it respectful. Keep it constructive.
Sure.
It's much more useful to say I don't like X, Y, Z, and here's what I think you could do to fix it or get it to where I would like it, than it is to just say I don't like it.
Yeah.
And not elaborate.
Yeah, that's a bad idea. That's not going to help anyone. It really won't.
His source is he's a forum MVP.
There you go.
He knows.
Yeah, he's official. But anyways, guys, this is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. Thanks to the chat, keeping it active, super exciting. Thanks to everyone. And I'm just obviously going to go around the room like I always do. Danny, any last minute shout outs for the 13th episode of the PvP Live podcast?
Lucky number 13. Thanks everybody for being here. Thanks chat. We got to spread the word a little bit more, I think. I think this time is better overall. We just maybe got to get more awareness out there. So if you guys liked what we did here, maybe retweet us or follow us all on Twitter.
Absolutely.
And help us out, because we like doing this, and we want more people to be in on this as well. So
for sure. We love the conversation.
Thanks everybody. Yeah.
Davis, going down to you. Any shout outs?
I don't have any shout outs. I was gonna shout out to my friend Napalm, who's made a PvP video with the assistance of Nico.
Oh, okay.
But I was gonna link it, but he's not in the chat, so
well, forget it then.
He can get stuffed. So
yeah, forget him.
But shout out to Nico for making the video for Napalm, and yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I'm
shout
actually
out to everyone in chat.
I'm excited to see this video. Hopefully, we can link it sometimes. I want to see it. Eldikar, going down to you. Any last minute shout outs?
I want to say thanks to everybody in the chat for being here and talking with us, and everybody that listens later. Obviously, love you guys too. And in particular, I want to shout out to Lore and Helenka. If you look at how much Lore has been doing on Twitter over the last few days, it is incredible. Yep. He has responded to
forums as well.
If he has responded to 1,000 people on 1,000 different questions, I don't know where he finds the time. And Helenka has been great too. He's been answering every question that I see posed to him on Twitter, and I think it's just fantastic, the level of interaction that these guys have with the community and the number of answers that they're bringing to us about different questions. A few years ago, something like this was totally impossible, and I think it's fantastic to see now.
Unheard of.
Yeah,
unheard of.
The magic of social media, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a huge improvement. The interaction that everyone is able to have with Blizzard staff members. It's amazing. It's a great turn of events.
Yeah, and I really want to credit them personally, because I know a lot of times they're responding on their own personal time and not on work time. So thank you guys so much for
Thanks for giving us stuff to talk about on the show.
Yeah. If it wasn't for blue posts and forum posts, we would have nothing to talk about. It'd just be
Twitter.
Yeah, in Twitter, it'd be me and Davis talking about cats. Thank you everyone so much for listening, watching, interacting in chat. We super appreciate it. And just one last time, please go to pvp-live.com, bookmark that site. We have crazy big things in the works. Anyways, until next time, thank you from PvP Live.
See ya.
Yeah.